Do you notice this? Most people know that assets matter, but almost no one truly owns them. Not because they aren't smart enough, not because they are lazy, but because they were taught how to work to survive, not how to build something that gives freedom back. The most dangerous thing is not lacking money. It is living your entire life with the feeling I'm doing the right thing, while the years keep passing and your life is not moving forward. I have been in that state, working hard, constantly learning, but deep inside I could clearly feel one thing: I was busy but not truly progressing. Like a seed buried deep in the ground. No one sees it, no one applauds it. For a long time there are no signs that it is growing. And because of that silence, many people quit, not because the seed is wrong, but because they cannot endure the process. And then I realized an important truth. Assets are not built to excite you today. They are built to free you in the future. Income gives you immediate comfort. Assets do not. They do not give you early dopamine. They give you only one thing in return: long-term peace. Today I will share with you the core principles that explain why most people never build real assets and what is quietly pulling them farther away from freedom day by day, even when they believe they are doing the right thing. And the final principle can completely change the way you see money and your entire life. Principle 1: knowing does not create results. There is a dangerous misunderstanding I have observed for many years working with people at every level. It is the confusion between knowing and doing. Many people believe that as long as they understand enough, read enough, listen enough, results will automatically appear. But life does not work that way. Life does not reward understanding. Life rewards action repeated long enough. I have met many intelligent people. They can analyze everything sharply. They talk about assets, investing, financial freedom with impressive confidence. But when you look at their lives, there are no assets, no freedom, only a familiar loop of busyness and exhaustion. And I realized something: knowledge that is not applied does not move you forward. It only makes you feel like you are moving forward. That feeling is very dangerous because it softens urgency. It lulls you into the belief, I'm learning, I'm preparing, my time will come. But assets are not built someday. They are built on very ordinary days, days when no one cares what you are doing. I remember a period in my life when I spent a lot of time learning. I read books, I listened to recordings, I took notes, and I truly believed I was on the right path. But year after year, my life did not change as much as I expected. Not because I didn't know enough, but because I didn't do enough. I knew the right things, but I did not do the right things long enough for them to produce results. That was when I understood a very direct truth. Knowing does not create assets. Only consistent action does. Assets require a very quiet kind of discipline. No applause, no recognition, no feeling of winning for a long time. You can do the right thing for many years and still not see clear results. And that is exactly when most people stop. They say, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe I need to learn more. But the truth is, they don't need to learn more. They need to go deeper in doing. I have seen people who talk less, theorize less, but consistently do one simple thing for many years. And then one day their results far surpass those who know more. Not because they are smarter, but because they didn't stop. Life has a very fair way of testing you. It does not ask how much you know. It asks how long you can act without a reward. Assets are built in that phase, in silence, in small choices no one sees, in saying no to immediate comfort to say yes to a more solid future. And I want you to ask yourself a very simple but very hard question honestly. Are you learning to delay action or learning to act better? There is a huge difference between the two. Those who learn to delay always feel not ready yet. Those who learn to act accept starting while imperfect. Assets do not require you to be perfect. They only require you to start and not quit. I once made the mistake of thinking I needed to understand everything before starting, and the price I paid was time. Time I will never get back, because time does not wait for you to finish understanding. It just quietly passes. And then I learned this: action corrects ignorance faster than any book. When you act, you collide with reality, you adjust, you grow. When you only know, you live only in your head. If today you are listening to these words and feel slightly uncomfortable, that is a good sign, because awakening is rarely comfortable. The problem is not that you are not smart enough. The problem is whether you are willing to do the right thing when no one is watching. And that is only the beginning. Because even after you start taking action, a bigger challenge still lies ahead: slowness. Principle. 2 assets. Punish impatience. I learned something very early, but it took many years to truly understand it. The most valuable things in life always progress slowly. The problem is, people hate slow. We live in a world where everything is measured by speed. Faster is better, earlier is winning. And that pace has quietly trained us to expect results before the process has time to work. But assets do not operate on the rhythm of urgency. They operate on the rhythm of time and consistency. I have seen many people start with great excitement. Their eyes light up when they talk about assets. They have plans. They have determination. But after a short time, when results do not appear, they begin to doubt, not the method, but the slowness of the process. And that is when assets begin to punish them. Not with dramatic failure, but with prolonged silence, because assets do not reward impatience. They only reward those who stay long enough. I have fallen into this trap myself. I was doing the right things, but I wanted results just a little sooner. And that desire for a little sooner put me in front of a very dangerous choice: either be patient longer or quit. Many people choose to quit not because they are wrong, but because they cannot endure the feeling that nothing is happening. There is a truth few people say out loud. The most dangerous phase is not when you are doing the wrong thing. It is when you are doing the right thing, but haven't seen results yet. That is when your mind starts whispering, maybe I'm wasting time. Maybe I should do something that feels more certain. And then you return to familiar things. Things that feel good right now. Things that keep you busy. Things that make you feel like you are moving forward. But assets are different. They do not give early rewards. They require faith before evidence, like planting seeds. You cannot pull the sprout up just because you are impatient. You cannot dig up the seed every day to check if it has grown. If you do, you kill the very thing you are trying to grow. Assets work the same way. Every time you doubt, every time you change direction just because you don't see results, you are digging up your own seed, and then you wonder why you never grow a big tree. I have observed one common trait among those who eventually succeed: they accept slowness at the beginning. They do not expect praise. They do not seek recognition. They understand that the early stage of asset building is a stage of invisible discipline. You can live correctly for many years without clear evidence that you are on the right path, and that is the real test. Life does not ask, do you have a plan? Life asks, will you stay when the plan has not produced results yet? Many people quit right before the process begins to accumulate power, because they measure progress by emotion, not by principle. Emotion says, I'm bored. Principle says, continue. Emotion says, nothing is happening. Principle says, keep doing it right. Assets do not care how you feel. They only respond to consistency. I once believed that if something was right, it should give me certainty. I was wrong. Many right things in life come with uncertainty, discomfort, lack of validation, and because of that, very few people finish. I want you to ask yourself one very honest question. Are you tired from moving forward or tired from running in circles? These two feelings look very similar. Both exhaust you. Both drain your energy, but only one of them brings you closer to freedom. Those tired from moving forward can rest, then continue. Those tired from running in circles rest and remain in the same place. The difference lies in direction, not in effort. Assets do not require you to be faster than others. They only require you not to quit sooner than yourself. And this is something very few people accept, that most great outcomes in life are built in years with nothing to show off. If you can endure that, if you can continue when no one is cheering, if you can trust the process without evidence, you have already gone farther than most people. And that is only the second challenge. Because even if you are patient enough, there is still a more subtle trap waiting ahead, a trap that feels very good, but pulls you farther away from assets every single day. Principle 3, income feels good immediately, assets bring long-term peace. There is a very subtle trap that most people fall into, and what's striking is that they fall into it feeling very comfortable. That trap is called quick results. Income gives you an immediate good feeling. You work, you get paid. You put in effort, you see the number go up. There is validation, there is feedback, there is a sense of being rewarded, and there is nothing wrong with that. Income is necessary. Income helps you live, pay bills, feel valuable. But the problem begins when you confuse feeling good with moving in the right direction. I have met many people who work very hard. They are busy from morning to night. They always have a reason to be tired. And at the end of the day, they can say, today I did a lot. But when you ask them, will what you did today still pay you back 5 years from now, the room suddenly goes silent. Because income gives you immediate rewards. Assets do not. Assets do not send you early signals that you are doing the right thing. They do not excite you. They do not make you want to show them off. For a long time, they give you no sense of winning at all. And that is why so few people ever build real assets. People don't just need motivation to start, they need motivation to continue when there is no reward. Income targets instinct. It gives you dopamine. It tells your brain, good job. Keep doing this. Assets whisper, trust me. One day you'll understand. And most people don't like whispers. They like applause. I have observed a very familiar pattern. When income increases, people tend to upgrade their lifestyle. Not because they need to, but because they deserve it. They work hard, they sacrifice a lot, and they reward themselves with new comforts, a little better right now. But the price they pay is less for the future. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy the fruits of your labor, but I want you to understand this clearly. If every reward is consumed, nothing is built. Assets require you to delay feeling good. And delaying gratification is a very rare skill because our brains are not designed to think far ahead. They are designed to survive. And survival always prioritizes now. That is why income always wins in the short term and assets only win in the long term. I once asked a very successful person a simple question: how do you stay consistent when nothing seems to be happening yet? He answered, I don't ask myself how I feel today. I ask whether what I'm doing serves my life 10 years from now. That is a very different way of thinking. People who chase income ask, what does this give me today? People who build assets ask, what will this give me when I'm tired? Income depends on your energy. Assets depend on your decisions. When you are still strong, income looks very attractive. But at some point you realize you are tied to your own energy. Assets are different. They don't need you to be present every day. They keep working while you rest. And that is when peace appears. But before peace, there is a very uncomfortable phase no one talks about. It is the phase where you do the right thing but feel like you are losing. You turn down some comforts. You don't upgrade as fast as others. You don't have much to show off. And for a long time, you look like the one moving slower. That is why society is very good at celebrating income, but very impatient with assets. Income can be measured immediately. Assets cannot. Income can be talked about. Assets must be waited for. I once made the mistake of measuring my progress by how I felt. If I felt good, I believed I was on the right path. If I felt bored, I thought I was going the wrong way. And I paid for that confusion. Because many right things in life do not make you feel good right away. Exercise is not always pleasant. Discipline is not always comfortable. Building assets is not always exciting. But they all share one thing: they return freedom quietly. I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, are you optimizing for how you feel today or for your life tomorrow? That question is not easy, but it is necessary. Because if you do not deliberately choose assets, income will always pull you back to the present. And the present is very attractive, but freedom lies on the other side of delay. If today you can accept a little less immediate pleasure in exchange for a little more peace in the future, you are going against the current of the crowd. And that is a good sign. Because assets are not built by people who follow feelings. They are built by people who follow principles. And this is not the biggest trap yet. Because even when you understand the difference between income and assets, there is still a common mistake that keeps many people from ever starting. Principle 4, when I have enough money, then I'll build the most dangerous lie. There is a sentence I have heard repeated for many years, from young people just starting their careers, from middle-aged people who have worked their entire lives, and even from very intelligent people. That sentence is, when I have enough money, then I'll start building assets. It sounds reasonable, it sounds cautious, it sounds like a smart plan, but the truth is, it is a very subtle lie. Not because people are intentionally deceiving themselves, but because that sentence gives them a sense of safety, a feeling that I haven't started yet, but I intend to. And intention without action becomes a very comfortable shelter for procrastination. I used to believe that sentence. I thought I needed to wait for a better time, more money, more stability, less risk. But that moment never came. Because money does not enter your life so that you can start building assets. Money appears when you start building assets. This is where many people get it backward. They think money is the prerequisite, but in reality, money is often the result. If you do not have the habit of building when you have little, you will not magically become a builder when you have more. Life does not change you just because you have more money. Life only amplifies who you already are. Those who are used to spending everything will spend more when they have more. Those who are used to procrastinating will procrastinate on a larger scale. I have met high-income earners who have no assets, not because they don't have enough money, but because they never trained the habit of building. They always live in a state of waiting until enough money, enough time, enough certainty. But assets do not need certainty. They need you to start in uncertainty. There is a very straightforward principle I learned. If you cannot manage a little, you will not manage a lot. If today you cannot set aside a small portion to build your future, then tomorrow, even if the number's bigger, your behavior will not change. People often underestimate the power of small decisions. They think life only changes with a big breakthrough. But assets are not built with leaps. They are built with repeated choices in very ordinary circumstances. I have noticed something interesting. People who say, "When I have enough money," are often the same people who never define what enough actually is. Enough how much? Enough until when? There is no answer. And that vagueness allows procrastination to stretch indefinitely. You cannot begin a journey without a starting point. And the starting point of assets is not a number, it is a decision. A decision that says, I will build even though things are not perfect. I started when I had very little money, little experience, little confidence. But starting in scarcity taught me lessons no book could ever teach. When you start early, you learn how to adjust. You learn patience. You learn long-term thinking. When you wait until enough, you learn nothing but waiting. I want you to ask yourself one very honest question. Are you waiting because you lack money or because you lack commitment? These two look very similar, but they lead to two completely different lives. Lack of money is temporary. Lack of commitment is a prolonged choice. Assets do not require you to start big. They only require you to start real. Real in decision, real in discipline, real in prioritizing the future even when the present demands a lot from you. If today you can do that with a very small portion, you are laying the foundation for a new kind of person. A person who does not wait for circumstances. A person who builds proactively. And that is the critical difference between those who only dream about assets and those who truly own them. But even when you decide to start early, there is still a very strong force constantly pulling you away from the path of building a force that makes consumption always seem much easier. Principle 5, consumption is always easier than building. There is a very simple reason few people are willing to face consumption is always easier than building. Not because people are bad, but because consumption does not require long-term vision. It only requires one very short decision. I want to feel better right now. Building is different. Building forces you to think beyond the present, forces you to consider consequences, forces you to face a question not everyone wants to answer. Is this decision serving my life or just today's feeling? I have observed this again and again for many years. When people are tired, they do not turn to building, they turn to relief. And society is very well organized to serve that need. Everything is designed to make spending easy, fast, attractive, and as thoughtless as possible. You don't need a plan to consume. You don't need discipline. You don't need patience. Just one moment of weakness and that is enough. But to build assets, you must do the opposite of your instincts. You must pause when everything urges you to move. You must think when everything encourages you to feel. And you must choose the future while the present is extremely persuasive. I have seen many people say, I'll start building when life is less stressful. But life is rarely less stressful. Only you become stronger under pressure or you become accustomed to escaping it. Consumption gives you a false sense of control. You feel proactive, you feel rewarded, you feel like you are living. Building does not give you that feeling immediately. It gives you something else, a very uncomfortable feeling at first, delayed gratification. This is where many people fail, not because they don't understand, but because they do not want to endure discomfort long enough. I have fallen into this trap myself. There were days I worked very hard, and I told myself I deserved to rest. And so I consumed time, I consumed money, I consumed energy. There is nothing wrong with rest. But there is a big difference between resting to continue building and resting to avoid building. Consumption hides procrastination very well. You are busy, you have things to do, you feel like you are living. But if you look back after a few years, you will ask yourself, what have I built? That question is heavy. And because it is heavy, many people never dare to ask it. Building assets requires you to take responsibility for decisions no one else sees. No one applauds when you don't buy. No one praises restraint. No one recognizes you for choosing the slower path. And that is why consumption always wins in the short term. It is supported by society. It is celebrated by friends. It is reinforced by advertising every day. Building is quiet, and quiet is always harder than noise. I once said to a friend, life doesn't punish you for consuming. It just doesn't reward you for not building. No one punishes you for shopping. No one punishes you for upgrading your lifestyle. But time quietly records how much you gave to the present and how much you gave to the future. And at some point, the bill from the past comes due. I want you to ask yourself one very simple question, powerful enough to make you pause. Is what you are consuming today buying freedom for you in the future? If the answer is no, then perhaps you are paying for a temporary feeling with a very long-term cost. Building does not require you to live miserably. It only requires you to live intentionally. Not everything you can buy is worth buying. Not everything that feels good is good for your life. I have learned this. Every spending decision is a vote for the person you will become. Who are you voting for every day? The person who lives comfortably today or the person who is free tomorrow? There is no single right choice for everyone. But there is always a choice aligned with your goal. And if your goal is freedom, you must accept one truth: that path is not paved with consumption. It is paved with small decisions repeated over and over that most people never notice. And this is not the greatest cost yet, because even when you are ready to spend less and build more, there is still one thing. Assets always demand a very specific sacrifice that not everyone is willing to pay. Principle 6 assets always require a specific sacrifice. There is a truth very few people want to hear, but you cannot build real assets if you avoid it. Assets always require a specific sacrifice, not a vague promise, not a good intention, but something very clear, very real, something you must give up today. Many people say they are willing to sacrifice, but when you ask them what they are sacrificing, the answers are usually very general. I'll try harder. I'll be more disciplined. But assets are not built on trying. They are built on choices with a clear cost. Sacrificing current comforts, sacrificing pleasant feelings, sacrificing the need to be like everyone else. And that is when things become difficult. I used to believe sacrifice was something big, a heroic decision, a dramatic breakthrough moment. But later I realized real sacrifice happens in very small moments. An evening when you choose not to consume so you can think about the future. A sum of money you don't use to upgrade the present but set aside for something that brings no feeling yet. A choice that makes you look slower than the people around you. No one praises you for these things. No one knows what you gave up. And that is exactly why so few people do it. People like to sacrifice when someone is watching. They like to be recognized for their effort. But assets require you to sacrifice when no one sees. I once observed something very interesting. People who never build assets are not people who don't sacrifice. They sacrifice a great deal, but they sacrifice for the present, not for the future. They sacrifice health to make money. They sacrifice time to stay busy. They sacrifice energy to keep up with the pace of life. And then they say they have nothing left to sacrifice. The difference is not whether you sacrifice or not. The difference is what you sacrifice for. Assets require you to sacrifice things that feel good now in exchange for things that have long-term value. And this is what stops many people. You cannot see the reward immediately. You cannot be certain your sacrifice will be repaid. You can only trust the principle. I have sacrificed things others did not understand. I turned down reasonable short-term choices. I accepted a narrower path. And for a long time, I looked like someone making life harder for himself. But assets do not care how you look in the eyes of others. They only care whether you are consistent. Sacrifice is not living in misery. Sacrifice is living with purpose. You are not giving up everything. You are only giving up things that do not serve the life you want to build. And here is a very important point. If your sacrifice does not hurt a little, you probably have not sacrificed enough. Because things that are easy to give up usually do not have much value. I'm not saying you must give up joy. I am saying you must learn to put joy in the right place. Joy should not lead decisions. Principles should. Many people wait until they feel more comfortable before they are willing to sacrifice. But comfort rarely comes before sacrifice. It usually comes after. Life does not give you freedom and then ask for discipline. Life asks for discipline first, then gives you freedom. This is an order very few people accept. You cannot keep the same lifestyle and expect a different future. something has to change. And often it is the thing you are most familiar with. I want you to ask yourself one very direct question. If you had to name one specific thing you need to give up today to build assets, what would it be? Not someday, not when conditions are right, but today. Because assets are not built in the future. They are built in the present, one small decision at a time. Sacrifice is the price of freedom. And that price cannot be paid once. It is paid every day. Successful people do not sacrifice more than you. They simply sacrifice in the right places. They understand that every choice is buying a version of the future. And they are very careful about what they are buying. If today you can choose one small sacrifice in exchange for greater freedom, you are doing what very few people are willing to do. And that is why very few people own real assets. But even if you are ready to sacrifice, there is still something very dangerous that causes many people to turn back at the last moment. Principle 7, later the most expensive word people ever pay. There is a very short word, very familiar, and very dangerous. That word is later. No word has taken away more dreams than this one. No word has delayed more lives than this one. And the scariest part is it doesn't sound negative. Later sounds reasonable. It sounds mature. It sounds like a temporary decision. But later is rarely a point in time. It is usually a trap. I have heard later from many people. Later when I have more money. Later when I'm less busy. Later when life is more stable. And the years pass. Life changes. But later is still there, untouched, never fulfilled. I used that word myself many times. I told myself I needed more time, more preparation, more certainty. But then I realized a very blunt truth. Later is not a plan. It is a very cleverly disguised form of procrastination, because later gives you the feeling that you haven't given up, you're just waiting. But what very few people are willing to face is this time does not wait for you. Every day that passes without building, you are not standing still. You are moving backward, because the world keeps moving, opportunities keep shifting, and the cost of waiting always goes up. Assets have a very special relationship with time. They need time to grow, but time never takes the side of procrastination. There is something I want you to understand very clearly. It's not that people don't have opportunities. It's that not everyone is patient enough to start early. Early does not mean perfect. Early simply means starting before you feel ready. People often wait until they feel comfortable before allowing themselves to act. But comfort rarely comes before change. You don't become confident and then start. You start and confidence appears. You don't become disciplined and then build assets. You build assets and discipline forms. Later reverses that order. It says, when I become the right person, then I'll do the right thing. But life works the opposite way. You do first, then you become. I have met people full of regret, not because they failed, but because they waited too long to start. They say, if only I had started earlier. If only I hadn't delayed. And the most painful part is this: they didn't lack ability. They lacked one timely decision. There is no perfect moment to start. There is only the moment you decide not to delay anymore. I want you to look straight at the word later every time it appears in your mind. Ask it one very simple question. When is later? If you cannot answer with a concrete action, then it's not a plan, it's an empty promise. Assets are not built on promises. They are built on decisions made even when it's inconvenient, even when it's imperfect, even when no one supports you. The majority always has reasons to wait. But freedom does not wait for the majority. I have learned this. Winners are not better. They just start earlier and quit later. They are not smarter. They are not luckier. They simply do not allow the word later to decide their lives. You don't need to do everything today, but you do need to do one right thing today. One small decision, one humble step, one choice for the future instead of for present comfort, because one day later will turn into too late. And when that moment comes, no knowledge will save you. No intention will help you. Only what you have done or not done. Assets do not fail. People quit first, and very often they quit not with a big decision, but by saying later. If today you can pause and choose not to use that word anymore, just for today, you have done something very rare. Because freedom does not come from beautiful promises. It comes from decisions made at the right time. And that moment is always today. If you have listened this far, I believe you have started to see things differently. Not because you learned something entirely new, but because you just looked at yourself more honestly. The truth is this: it's not that people don't have opportunities, It's that not everyone is patient enough to build things that don't give immediate results. Assets do not fail. They do not betray you. They do not abandon you. Only people quit first, often quietly, often with very familiar words, later. You don't lose because you lack intelligence. You don't lose because you lack ability. Many people lose simply because they don't stay long enough for the process to unleash its power. I have learned this life does not reward those who understand the most. Life rewards those who are the most consistent, not the fastest, but the ones who don't stop. If today you feel slightly uncomfortable hearing these things, take it as a good sign, because awakening is rarely comfortable. But in that moment you have a choice. You can return to the old rhythm, to familiar safety, to the very comfortable word later, or you can choose differently, not with a big action, but with one small but real decision, a decision that says, I will start, I will continue, and I will not quit just because I don't see results yet. If this video gave you a new thought, a different perspective, please press like to support the channel. If you are on a journey to build a better life, subscribe to Jim Rohn Treasures so we can continue this journey together slowly, steadily, and with principles. And I want to ask you one question before we end. Which principle in this video made you think the most? Leave a comment below. I truly appreciate that you stayed until the end of this video. And remember, everything great begins with a very small decision. Maybe today is that day.